Hello, blockchain nerds, traders, hodlers, moon boys, and everyone else. Welcome to the Crypto Made Easy with Zypto podcast. Today, featuring Reef.io, according to their website, which you should visit as soon as this podcast finishes, or right now if you can multitask. They are a reliable, extensible, efficient, fast blockchain for DeFi, NFT, and gaming. Brought to you, as always, by Zypto.com. My name is Joe Parkin. I'm one of the founders of Zypto, and in this podcast, as with all the others that are to come, we're going to be looking into the basics of the topic our special guest is an expert in. We're going to do a deep dive into our guest's project, their company or field of expertise, and then we'll discuss some general related topics before, assuming we have time, taking some questions from our live audience here in the @Zypto Global Telegram channel, home of our very own Zyptonian community. With us today, we have Derek Silva, who is the operations lead at Reef Blockchain. Hey, Derek, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well. Thanks, Joe. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from lovely southwestern Ontario in Canada.
Ah, nice. Yeah. So my brother's somewhere near there right now, actually. He's off on a trip. So,
oh, okay. Well, there you go.
There you go, buy and visit. So I'm going to just give you a quick explanation of the way that the podcast sets up, so you know what we're going to be doing. So we've split it into three sections. We've got the basics. In that part, we think it's important to not assume that everybody that's listening is going to know everything about blockchain and DeFi, etc. So we'll just kind of go over some of the basics, like really, really basics for us. Then we're going to go into a deep dive into Reef, what you guys are doing. And then the final section, we'll talk a section we call the big picture, where we're going to kind of break out a little bit into a more kind of general DeFi, crypto, blockchain space discussions. We're going to keep it kind of brief. So we'll be moving through reasonably quickly on the questions, so we don't get bogged down, being nerding out on things where everybody else goes to sleep. So
yeah, no, that's fine. I tend to be long-winded, so I'll try to keep it concise.
Yeah, I struggle to be concise. I'm a talker. So before we get started, though, Derek, I think it'd be great if you could give us a bit of an introduction about yourself, your background, and what you do at Reef.
Yeah, sure. So you know my name, you know roughly where I live. I've been in the blockchain space. I got into it about 7 years ago. I went to a conference called Fireside Conference in 2017. They had a mini conf on Saturday. One was about marijuana. One was about, I don't remember the topic because I didn't go into any of the sessions. And then the other one was about blockchains. And I was there to record a live episode of my podcast, Canadian Tech Podcast, that I was co-hosting at the time. And so I was like, wow, obviously we're going to the blockchain side of things. Like I have very little care for the marijuana side of things. And I got red pilled. I met Anthony DiIorio, who's the founder of Decentral and one of the first wallets called Jax. First, like Ethereum wallets, cross-chain wallets. I met Ethan Buckman, who is a co-founder of Cosmos and Tendermint, the underlying consensus mechanism. And a whole bunch of other people who I thought were super interesting. Jonathan Mann, Song a Day. I met him in 2017. Like some really, really interesting people. Rick Scoble, who also had a good talk about his time at Rackspace. And I fell down the rabbit hole. I went home. I started researching ICOs because it was fall of 2017. And I found ETHLend, which eventually became Aave. So I've been aware of Stani and his team for quite a while. And
so you're a real OG then, Derek.
Yeah, yeah, you could say that. And then I discovered Bloom Protocol because they had done an integration announcement, and I fell down the rabbit hole with Bloom. I thought it was amazing. The website's still up, but I don't know what they're actually doing right now. And yeah, and things have just kind of snowballed from there. I've been in the industry full time since February 2018, starting off with Bloom, and then having an opportunity to work with lots of other people since then. Lots of other projects. Here at Reef, yeah, it's operations lead. So I have a team that runs the Discord. I guess more or less these days, the community managers, I guess, all report to me. That wasn't intended, but it's just kind of worked out that way. And, I help coordinate partnerships, make sure the developers are doing what they got to do. I guess, a COO type role without the chief part at the beginning. And and so, a lot of what you're seeing lately, if I didn't come up with it, I'm helping execute it. And if I did come up with it, I'm having other people help me execute it. Denko, the CEO, is still behind the scenes, making sure everything's running, making sure bills are getting paid, a few other things. But on a day-to-day basis, most things run through me these days.
Excellent. I have a very similar role here at Zypto. At the end of the day, a lot of companies in the crypto space, we're startups, right? So we have to be involved in many different things, which I find very interesting and stimulating. I get tremendous bored just doing this thing all day, every day. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. So we're going to get started with the basics, and we are really going to start from basics. We throw around terms like layer 1 blockchain, layer 2 blockchain all the time, but beginners in the space, I'm pretty sure they get confused by these things. And I think actually probably a lot of investors and people that are, part-time in the space don't fully understand what it is. So how would you describe a layer 1 blockchain and how it differs from a layer 2, for example?
A layer 1 blockchain is basically a distributed computer that allows you to run programs on the layer 1 blockchain. And the programs or the operations are actually executed by the blockchain itself, which is run by a set of, typically these days, a set of validators. Validators are computers that are running all over the world by various entities who are maintaining good uptime and good performance, so that the programs, the operations you want to execute are executed properly and in order. I guess without getting into the economic side of things too much, the people who are running the blockchain get paid for running the blockchain. That's, it's not typically a something you're doing out of charity. So
let's break it down there. Before we move on to the different layer 2. So how are the people paid? We're going to use obviously as our example here. So how are those people being paid?
Yeah, so they are being paid. They're being paid with whatever native token is the one that's being used to operate the blockchain. So in Reef's case, that would be the Reef token. You'll see the word Reef all over the place with our ecosystem.
Yep. Of course.
And there is it's not a set allocation, but there are, let's say, roughly 2 million tokens per day being issued out to anybody running one of the validators. And in addition to that, anybody who's also nominating the best validators to run the blockchain. And being a nominator doesn't require a whole lot of extra work. It really involves some sort of decision-making process that you take on to determine who can maintain good uptime, who can maintain good performance, which of these validators, and who's also going to give me a decent cut of the tokens that the validator is going to get for successfully running the blockchain. So again, in Reef's case, we have a total of 23 active validators at any point in time.
Okay.
There's a bunch of other potential validators who are waiting and trying to attract more nominations to be one of the active operators of the blockchain. And if you were not to share your rewards, you'd get, as a validator, you would get roughly 200,000 Reef per day right now.
Okay, what would that be in dollar value, just so we know what kind of thing we're talking about?
Yeah, give me a sec to go to CoinGecko and I'll tell you.
Okay, no problem. This is all something which I think a lot of people out there in the general public don't really understand, that there's, apart from the technology, there's also a kind of each blockchain has a kind of an economy going on with people kind of vying for these rewards, these mining rewards.
Yeah. And to answer your question, right now, that's roughly $870 US per day.
Okay.
So if you're able to stake enough or of your own Reef tokens and keep all the rewards for yourself, you can be making a pretty decent income running the blockchain, helping run the blockchain successfully. Obviously, if you don't, if your hardware is not up to task for whatever reason, network reasons, your storage fails, your RAM fails, your CPU can't keep up, etc., but you're in the active set, you can actually get what's called slashed, and basically a portion of your tokens are taken away from you because you're trying to be a good operator, but you're failing to do so.
Okay.
And so it's not personal, it's business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so anyway, so to back up my original point, so the validators typically split the rewards with the community of potential nominators because it's worth it to them to make a little bit of income and be in the active set rather than trying to, on an economic basis, buy so many Reef that they are, in the active set by themselves, because that would be right now a fairly significant undertaking. That would put you at, in the thousands of dollars. You'd need 75. You'd need to spend $327,000 today, roughly, to get into the active set by yourself. So obviously, it's a much smaller lift to say, I'm going to stake, 500,000, 1 million Reef, something like that, and set 5% or 10% commission on the daily rewards, and hopefully attract enough other people to say, I think Joe's going to be a great network operator. He's running his hardware. He's engaged with the community. He's told us a little bit about the hardware that he's running so that we understand, it should be able to keep up with the blockchain. And sure, I'm going to nominate him. And you can also nominate multiple validators at once. Okay. So, you can spread your risk a little bit too.
Okay. So is this a typical setup? So in the case of Reef, it's a layer 1 blockchain whereby people are staking tokens. They can be nominators, they can be validators. And there's an ecosystem, so an economy that's built up around that, and a sharing of rewards, etc. Is this a pretty typical setup, would you say, or would you say that other blockchains work substantially differently?
These days, this is pretty common. Ethereum used to be a proof of work blockchain. You needed to stake, or actually, I'm not sure. I don't even think you needed to stake anything. You just needed to run incredibly powerful hardware in order to keep up with the storage requirements and obviously the compute requirements, and those were increasing daily for a period of time back in 2020. And but after they switched to a proof of stake model, their model is a lot more like Reef's, except that you don't have the nomination part of it. You have liquid staking, which is different. I think the end effect is similar, but definitely different, and a different mechanism for achieving kind of the same thing. But that was not native to the proof of stake rollout. Those are third-party platforms that were built on top of Ethereum in order to achieve, like I said, roughly the same thing with what we do with nominated proof of stake. Whereas Reef has been nominated proof of stake since we launched our mainnet in 2021.
So before we end this section, I think this has been super useful for people listening that haven't really thought about the way these things function. Let's just have a look at this concept of staking. How would you define what staking is and how that helps to secure the network?
Yeah, so staking basically, in this case of helping run a blockchain, is more or less spreading the risk, and also puts the onus on the humans behind the blockchain to actually work together, basically, or at least engage with each other, because there are lots of people who have at least a few tokens, maybe a few 100,000 of tokens or a few million, but either lack the technical know-how to run their own validator, but they still want to participate in earning, potentially 15, 20, 25% yield on their tokens for doing not a whole lot of work, which is kind of nice. Or
always nice.
Like I said,
that's the dream.
Yeah. Or like I said earlier, there are people with the technical know-how, and obviously they can get their validator up and running, but they don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars lying around to buy enough tokens in order to set up the validator completely on their own and get it into the active set by virtue of having the most tokens staked one way or another. And so you end up with a really symbiotic relationship between validators and nominators. And if validators misbehave, according to the community, which obviously could be not running a strong enough server to keep up with the blockchain, not maintaining uptime, maybe through networking issues, or constantly changing the commission day by day or epoch by epoch, and therefore kind of messing with the community, with your nominator community's expectations. People can literally vote with their wallets and nominate a different validator. And so,
that's great.
Ultimately, a validator is definitely incentivized to be on their best behavior from multiple angles. And nominators are encouraged to pick people who are going to pick validators who are going to be on their best behavior, run the blockchain properly, be a good operator, and be consistent as well. So, it's a good relationship if it works out well.
I'm not I am by no means an expert on the technical side of blockchains, but the concept of it definitely makes sense. And this is one of the exciting things to me about being in this space, is seeing how people are trying to come up with ways of making economies work that are cooperative, collaborative, and trying to be fair. Because part of the reason we exist as a technology and a community is because we don't always think that the system we currently have is fair. So I always love hearing these kinds of explanations. So before we move on to the deep dive into Reef specifically, let's not leave the L2 part of that up in the air. How would you say that? So L1 is actually validating the transactions on the native blockchain, and an L2, how would that be different, would you say?
So layer 2s, largely speaking, take out that the economic model side of things and rely on the underlying layer 1 for that economic security. So I know there's a lot changing with Optimism and Arbitrum and other layer 2s like that frankly I have not been able to keep up with. So I'm going to use Polygon V1 as my example here. Pardon me, 1 second. I think I just picked up the cold or flu that's been running around my house for the last week. So
it's that time of year.
Yeah, definitely. My voice is a little scratchy this morning. I do. I have 3. My fiance has 2. It's a very busy household. Anyway,
they go off and collect all of the viruses that have been going around over summer.
All the best viruses.
And bring them all home to concentrate into the parents. It's lovely.
Yeah. Only the best viruses. So Polygon for a long time, and I'm pretty sure Polygon still operates this way. Not the ZK EVM version, but at least the Polygon V1. They had staking of their tokens, which was Matic, and now it's POL.
Yes.
But the staking of Matic tokens was actually happening on the Ethereum blockchain. And so you'd set up your Polygon validator, you would set up your stake, and you could attract other people to nominate your validator. But that staking was all happening on the Ethereum blockchain, not on Polygon's Layer 2 blockchain. And so I believe Starknet works similarly, so I think we can include them in this example. But the Layer 2 obviously executes transactions, executes programs in the form of smart contracts, moves tokens around, etc., validates those transactions. But then that last stage of finality, making sure that the blockchain is actually immutable, that all got wrapped up into bits of information that the underlying Ethereum blockchain would it would be sent there to validate, and then ultimately the finality happens there on Ethereum. And so you have a blockchain where at least the Layer 2 blockchain, where at least a portion of the work that typically happens to verify, did everything happen properly? Is everything in the right order? Are we all in consensus about what happened? That final, yes, and now we're going to lock this and it's never going to be changeable again. That final step happens on the Layer 1.
Great.
I know there's a lot of differences these days and differences in storage and all that, but like I said, I haven't been able to keep up with all that. I'm very much focused on Reef and whatever I read in my email from the Defiant and CoinStack and other people like that. But that's just keeping up with the daily news.
Yeah, there's so many L2s, and there's so many of everything coming up every day. It's impossible to keep track. Okay, so exactly. let's really focus in on Reef. So we're going to go straight into our deep dive, and we're going to begin from the beginning. So could you give the listeners a bit of a description of the origin story of Reef Blockchain?
Sure. So I joined, I'm going to say, I think it was around March or April 2021. So I was not part of the founding team or anything like that. The original vision was to compete in one of the Polkadot parachain auctions, which for anybody who's been part of that ecosystem knows got very expensive, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And to be this DeFi operating system, like an on-chain aggregator of liquidity from a variety of Polkadot parachains and EVM-based chains, so Ethereum style and compatible blockchains.
Yeah,
and so this was like the height of DeFi summer in 2020. And things started to die down a little bit. And so my understanding is that the founding team decided, ooh, this is a bit of a fad. We don't know if it's going to be sustainable. Instead of really leaning into DeFi, which, in hindsight might have been smart regardless, but instead of leaning purely into DeFi, why don't we broaden our horizons a little bit? Let's become a Layer 1 blockchain. And obviously we can still bring DeFi projects onto Reef and maybe still do what we originally intended to do, but it'll be easier to build something that lasts long term instead of trying to chase this fad and maybe we lose out even if everything else goes well. So I don't know exactly when, but by the time I joined on, and I think it was March 2021, I was helping write announcements every day about all these other projects who had committed, verbally at least, to building on Reef Blockchain. I'm not going to go over any names because, quite frankly, I wrote so many in such a short period of time. I don't remember most of them, but it was almost daily, and for a little while. And then I brought my team on. Well, the Reef wanted to. No, I don't need to get into that. Anyway, so since May or June 2021, when we launched the Reef mainnet, the team's been focused on making sure that we have kind of like all the basics that a layer 1 would need for people to build on it. It's taken us some time. A few different reasons it's taken us so much time. We chose to deploy a variant of the Acala EVM Plus palette, I guess, on Reef as our basis for EVM interaction.
Okay.
That was probably short-sighted at the time, or maybe not short-sighted, but it wasn't the best option. Frontier EVM has really come out as like the preferred version in the Substrate Polkadot world. So, it's been a little bit of a struggle there because a lot of developers or a lot of projects are willing to come to different blockchains, but they want it to be super easy. And, going with a Acala EVM Plus instead of Frontier EVM made it not super easy. Pardon me. So, and then we also needed other things like indexing infrastructure, a nice, easy to use mobile app. What else did we need? Just other partners working in the space who could supplement what we did not build internally and what we did not want to build internally. And so that took us a little bit extra time, for better or worse. And with things going the way they did with the markets last year, largely speaking, and into this year,
that was fun, huh?
Yeah, that was super fun. Second time around. It just made it harder to retain people. Obviously, there are projects who've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe even billions of dollars, are paying well into 6 figures for talent, and it seems like we just couldn't keep up. So we had to scale back our tech resources, and we haven't been able to be as aggressive as other projects are, but
you're still going with this. With any kind of startup or new project, it's not so much about it's all about who gets up and keeps on going when there are obstacles. So many people give up along the way. They're the people that will be forgotten about. If you keep on going, then you're still in the game.
Yeah, pretty much. So, we have an incredible community who has stood by us and stood with us and been incredibly patient. And so, I knew we had, like, back in like June or July, I knew we had enough runway to keep the staff we had, keep doing what we're doing, which ultimately wasn't a lot. Like we shipped Reef Swap this year, which has been great. It got a flurry of activity early on. But with a lack of incentives other than, trading fees for being a liquidity provider, or obviously launching your own token and, hoping for the best. There hasn't been a lot of incentives to launch on ReefSwap. And, like any day one project, there are some bugs here and there that need to be fixed. So we're working on that. Reef Chain Wallet, we got live on Android through Google Play Store. That was super easy, to be frank.
When did that launch, Derek?
Those launched back in late June, I think.
Late June. I haven't had a chance to download it and play with it. You told me about it on the. We should give a shout out to the Web3 Global Media Spaces on X, who are fantastic, which is where we connected. I haven't. You mentioned it there, and I wanted to download it because obviously we've got our wallet app as well. I'm always interested to see how people are. Everyone's trying to make it as easy for the users, and obviously we're looking to integrate more chains as well. So maybe if you're interested in having being able to be in others, then we'll be happy to discuss that offline as well.
Yeah, definitely want to talk to you guys about that. But
so I'm going to jump into something regarding what your website states as what your focus is. So you're focused on DeFi. This is something, again, like it was a bit basic for some people I know, but so this is around decentralized apps and smart contracts. What is it that what specific use cases would you say Reef stands out for, or is particularly suited to?
I mean, ultimately, anything you can do on Ethereum, but a lot less, or a lot more cheaply.
Right.
The fees for running. Actually, we've got docs on this before. I can actually put some money behind these statements as soon as I can click get started. There we go.
So, like, just for context, for anyone that doesn't know how much gas fees cost on the Ethereum mainnet, we're talking right now between $5 and $10 just to send tokens, because there's quite a lot of activity this week.
Wow.
So fees are quite high. That's tokens. Ethereum, obviously, ETH itself is lower. And to execute a swap, for example, can be up like $20, $30.
Yeah.
At the moment.
So sending tokens, sending Reef tokens from one wallet to another is a very consistent 1.5 Reef. So you're literally looking at about a penny right now.
Okay. It's a bit different.
1 US penny. Yeah, that's quite a bit different. Executing a Uniswap trade, you're probably looking at about 10 cents worth of Reef.
Rather different.
Yeah.
And how fast is it, Derek? So how fast would be a transfer, for example? How long would you expect it to take?
It's a few seconds. Okay. Yeah. So block times are roughly 10 seconds. So depending on when you actually submit the transaction and when the block time runs out, it could actually be like 2 or 3 seconds. At most, you're looking at 10 seconds for your friend or the DeFi protocol you're participating in or whatever to get the tokens. And then our transaction finality time, so that time where it's like, okay, it's been validated by multiple validators, more than half the validators, and it's now completely immutable. You're looking at 40 seconds total.
Okay.
So
I think that's a reasonable amount of time to wait. 40 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, realistically, it's a few seconds for, like, if in a future world where I'm standing in front of an ice cream shop and I'm spending, $15 or $20 for ice cream, or realistically, okay, $35 now for ice cream for the family, and I'm to scan a QR code and send enough stable coins on the Reef blockchain. They're literally going to have those in their wallet, no intermediary, or at least very few intermediaries, in a few seconds, and with less transaction costs than they would otherwise see on any traditional debit or credit network. So it's fast, it's cheap for just sending tokens from one wallet to another. The Reef blockchain can do about 500 transactions per second. For the more, if you're doing more like Uniswap trading transactions and things like that, transactions that use like 300,000, 400,000 gas or GUI and gas, we could still do about 450 to 470 transactions per second. So it's
nice.
Got good throughput. That's with all the current block time, finality, and block size parameters. Obviously, we could mess around with those a little bit, do some testing, make sure everything will be okay. The maximum block size is still less than 4 megabytes. So if it was 4 megabytes even, maybe 5, potentially we could squeeze in more. it's just, it's a matter of messing around with those parameters, continuing to do stress testing, making sure things, still work the way we expect it to. And then deploying that. And that's on a server that probably costs you about $20 to $25 a month to run and maintain.
Oh, wow.
So it's low compute requirements. 100 gigabytes of storage is enough for the mainnet right now. And it ultimately, it doesn't take a lot to run a Reef node on the the horsepower, the resource side of things, computing resources.
Okay, good to know. That's something that a lot of people are interested in. Like, how do you get into mining? Everybody's heard about it, but everyone thinks that mining is just Bitcoin and Ethereum. When this is actually something we're going to talk about in the big picture section here, which is just coming up. So finally, here on the subject of Reef, so could you talk to us a little bit about interoperability? So how Reef works with other blockchains, because obviously one of the most difficult things for people nowadays is there are so many different blockchains out there. You've got something on one blockchain, but actually you want it on another one. So what steps have you taken so far at Reef to make it interoperable?
One of the problems we've had is up until now, I shouldn't say not much. We were about to launch a bridge with multi-chain about a year ago, literally about this time a year ago. Multi-chain used to be called AnySwap. It was highly used, very liquid bridge connected to a variety of networks. They had taken an incredibly long time to get Reef integrated, not because we didn't pay for the time or whatever, but I don't know. Just, they were preoccupied with other things, I guess. And finally, Reef was operating on testnet. We did a bunch of tests. Everything seemed to be working great. We were allegedly, a week away from a mainnet launch. We had planned all sorts of incentives and everything for moving Reef from Ethereum and BNB Smart Chain to the Reef network. And that's a relic of our original DeFi operating system vision. There's representations of Reef on 2 other blockchains. And then one of the founders got arrested in China.
Oh, no.
And then his sister, who had access to the private keys, also got arrested. And then it was just, is it okay if I use the occasional curse word here?
I would say so. Yes, it's podcast.
Okay. Then it was a shit show. And it just, it led to multi-chain ultimately folding. They completely, a swap. I mean, the app's still available, but I don't think anybody's using multi-chain anymore as their bridge.
I after hearing about what's been happening with them, I'm not going to be looking for it to use it myself. So, we'll call that a false start on that one.
So
do you have anything coming up? Anything coming up in that regard?
Yeah, thankfully. So, we did a lot of due diligence, and obviously there's a cost factor here too. It's not that we can't pay for a good team to build, but asking for some of the numbers that some of the teams we've talked to, I've asked for. I'm like, whose house am I buying on your behalf? Like, this is ridiculous. So anyway, we finally selected Via Labs, who's building a relatively new but well-functional bridge called any2any.io. They've already connected to 10 networks. They have a messaging product that's already connected to 110 different networks. So they're building quickly. They're building a lot more quickly than they can update their documentation. I found out recently. And
that happens.
And they're starting work in about 3 weeks on integrating Reef Chain into their messaging and bridging products. They've also got this program called Proto CCTP, CCTP being Circle's cross-chain transfer protocol, I think that means. And basically they're going to make it, and we have a relationship with Circle as well. We've talked to them many times. They've given us the parameters that would be necessary for them to consider a native deployment of USDC instead of a bridge
deployment.
That would be. But in the meantime, basically VIA Labs is going to set everything up in such a way that when we hit those parameters and Circle looks at Reef Chain and says, okay, this is good, you guys have attracted attention, a good amount of USDC on Reef Chain, etc., we'll take over the smart contract. VIA Labs is going to help us set things up in such a way that it'd be really easy for Circle to step in and take control and make that a native deployment of USDC, and obviously incorporate Reef Chain more closely into all their products. So we're getting a lot of value from this new relationship. We're really excited for it. And hopefully before the end of the year, but definitely early 2025 at the latest, Reef Chain will be built into VIA Labs messaging, any-to-any.io, and we should start and it'll be possible at least to bring USDC from other blockchains over to Reef Chain, and obviously, use those in a variety of ways. We're gonna, see if we can get a lending protocol brought over by then. Incorporate stablecoin payments into the NFT marketplace, Squid. Obviously, you'll be able to make liquidity pools on ReefSwap with USDC, and they'll have a few different use cases right away, and hopefully we'll continue bringing more projects into the ecosystem, and they'll be able to take advantage of the fact that USDC is bridgeable and other tokens are bridgeable later this year or early next year.
Fantastic. Well, make sure you let us know when that happens, so that we can enjoy the excitement along with you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our final section, which we're calling the big picture, where we're going to talk a little bit about some more general kind of blockchain-based topics related to what we've been discussing already. So we're going to start off with one of the most polemic things about blockchain in general, which is proof of work versus proof of stake. There's some discussion about the energy consumption already on your website, I noticed. So would you say that Reef as a project is generally concerned about environmental sustainability?
I certainly am, yeah. And I think largely speaking, we have made a lot of noise in the past about how little power we use, how few resources is required to run the blockchain. And I think in general, that's really important. I'm not going to poop on other people who are potentially using more power than they could, or in my opinion, than they should. The Bitcoin maxis have proof of work very much a part of their core. That's fine.
Yes.
Ultimately, I'm far more worried about or focused on showing people that there's a way to use decentralized finance products, earn money, play games, etc., in a way that uses way less electricity than a small country.
Yep.
So,
which is exactly what it is. So, what would you say to somebody that uses the argument that, or claims that Bitcoin is a store of energy? They claim that Bitcoin is energy. Have you heard this argument? They say it's it's energy stored on the network. How would you reply to this?
I would say no, unfortunately, because I've toyed around in the past with setting up solar panels on my roof, and not because I'm like a hippie or anything like that, but more so because I value independence. And so, I want to be prepared for a time when, when was it? It was 2003 or 2004, the big blackout all across like Ontario, Quebec, pretty much the entire northeast of the US. I was there. I was right in the thick of it. And so, the apartment building I was living in at the time had some sort of energy backup system and some solar panels to help keep it charged even a little bit. So at least we could run our refrigerators or hell, just our refrigerators. That would have been nice because, we were literally a couple days or like We were lucky. I think the next morning we had power, but there were people who were without power for days. And so, for me, that's more of an energy independence thing. And just to say, like, well, even if everybody else was without power, I've got a battery backup in my garage. I've got solar panels helping keep it going during the day. And so at least I can just keep doing my thing. And so from that perspective, that's a store of energy, right? Batteries are a store of energy.
Yes.
Gasoline tanks, petrol tanks, those are stores of energy because you can actually burn them and do something productive with them, besides send money to somebody else. So,
Yes.
I don't agree that the Bitcoin network is a store of energy. I'm perfectly fine with pardon me. I'm perfectly fine with the store of value argument.
Store of value makes sense. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that
but
Bitcoin is digital gold.
Because if for something to be a store of something, you need to be able to get it back out again. So this is I've been shouted at a bit by Bitcoin maxis online before, where they say it's a store of energy. I say, okay, well, show me the day that you get it back out again, and I'll agree with you.
Right. I mean, like,
get it back out again in the form of a Lambo as a store of value, but store of energy seems like clutching at straws to me.
Yeah, I think that's a stretch personally, and I'm not gonna sit here and argue with a Bitcoin maxi for an hour over it either, because I have more productive things to do with my time. But I guess that's one of those extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence type of situations. So it's going to have to be really convincing.
So to be clear, I'm not anti Bitcoin. What I'm anti is just in general extremism. Any kind of extremism I find gets concerning. So which is why Zypto as a company, we embrace all kinds of blockchain technology. We try to make it so that people can choose, and we think that's how things are going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think? Do you think I would? You're probably going to want to say yes, as you're representing Reef. Do you think blockchain has reached its final form, or do you think we're going to see additional evolutions over the coming years in terms of like the consensus models and the way things are validated, how consensus is achieved? You know what I mean?
On the consensus side, I think there's probably room for refining what's already available, but I think for the most part we've kind of solved the big issues there. I was listening to Ethan Buckman talk about the Byzantine generals problem in 2017, and ultimately I don't think I'm not reading the research paper either.
Could you maybe paraphrase that, or give a brief description?
Oh boy.
Any way of making it short?
I'll try. So basically, imagine you're a Byzantine general in the Middle Ages, and you're about to attack a village from 3 different angles. Your challenge there is to align your other battalions, or whatever you want to call them, squadrons, to make sure that you all attack at the same time and that you're all aligned. And so ultimately, that's a communication and consensus problem of making sure that squadrons A, B, and C all attack at the same time, so that you all arrive on this village that's about to get slaughtered roughly around the same time. That's a very short.
In this model, who are the people? Version. So in this model, in this analogy, who are the people who are about to get slaughtered? Just to make sure I'm not there.
So the squadrons are the validators, and the people about to get slaughtered in the town are the transactions. So ultimately, it's
killing it. We're killing the transactions.
Yeah. In this, yes. I mean, in that scenario, yes, the people are being killed, but that means that the transactions are being executed. In the same order, in the same order with the expected results. So
I think with
I'm
the
sure
transactions being with the transactions being executed, part of that, I would say you nailed it. So quite frankly, okay, great. So we don't run over time too much. What we're going to do now, we're going to allow people here in our Telegram group at Zypto Global to, if they wish, open their microphones and ask their questions. This may require some heavy editing later, but that's absolutely fine. Okay, has anybody got any questions? We've got Rob. Let's see. Here we go. I'm giving Rob the mic.
Good day.
Good day, sir.
I just had a general question. So for the validator side, are you registered anywheres where like a typical user who may not want to host their own machine would be able to like pay either a monthly or an annual fee so that it's like cloud computing and then they just operated from there, kind of like a system like kind of like Pecunia that hosts master nodes, but you have validator nodes?
Yeah, no, we don't. Okay, Supernoders lets you run mainnet Reef chain nodes. So, and I think it's literally as simple as like spin me up a Reef node and then it's up and running. So a lot of that, a lot of that initial setup is all taken care of you, but you would still need to take the software configuration steps to actually register it as a validator. Add an on-chain identity if you wanted to, and things like that. And obviously stake your tokens. The instructions for all of that are literally copy and paste from Reef's documentation. So it's not, it's helpful if you understand what each step is doing. But I wouldn't say it's incredibly difficult. But we don't have the same ecosystem that Dash used to have or Monero has and stuff like that for like, go here, set up a master node, probably plug in, just fill out this form and we'll just send those parameters for you to the server. It's not quite that simple for Reef, but I don't think it's much more difficult than setting up a BNB chain node, a Polygon node. Like 2 or 3 years ago, I went through the Polygon validator documentation, and that was a mess. It was so difficult, and nowhere did they tell you that they actually had a closed validator set of 100 validators that they had chosen. So it's like, what am I setting up a validator for? I got to the end and I'm like, okay, I've staked more than the bottom like 3 or 4 validators on this list. And I waited a day and I waited 2 days and I finally went to their Discord. I'm like, guys, what's going on? They're like, oh yeah, no, it's actually a closed validator list. I'm like, what? Where's the decentralization here? This is ridiculous. But
yeah, I was just asking for like, like the people that don't want to buy the hardware, if you were registered. So is that link and everything available? Because, with the steps, anybody can do anything. But, when it comes to hardware, that's when it gets a little finicky, right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you can go run a Reef node on Vultr, Amazon EC2, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, Linode. Like, you really just need a decent virtual private server. It's not expensive, and so literally, if you sit in that like $20 to $25 US per month range, you will find enough storage and compute to keep up. If you're not sure what to do, join the community. We can help point the way. We've done it before. And
so I was going to ask Derek on this. Where would be the best place for people to go if they're interested in becoming a validator? So you've got Reef.io, but you also have a Telegram, Discord.
Yeah, Discord is probably better. I'm more active in there, and
okay.
Obviously I'm running the community developer fund validator, so obviously I know how to do it.
Okay.
But Telegram is fine too. We have people like Pierre, Bene, Giga Labs who are in there and are, even though a few of them are running their own validators, they're generally pretty helpful for people who want to be good network participants, just like they are.
Fantastic.
So
this is one of the things I like. I sometimes think it's a bit of a shame that new people in the space kind of start with the big projects, and their voices just are not going to be heard. They're not going to get the help and that you get with newer projects, like which are still more community driven. Where you can literally speak to people. That are running things. I would encourage anybody listening that's interested in starting out in doing mining or validating to go and speak to the guys at Reef. You'll learn a lot, I guarantee.
Yeah, definitely. We've got incredibly helpful community members and moderators as well who are happy to help out.
Good stuff.
One final
yeah, go ahead.
On that.
Go ahead.
So for those that think that they want to, it's cheaper instead of paying those cloud computing companies and they just want to set up their own hardware, do you have a penalization period if they don't have that 99% uptime that's automatic on your blockchain?
Yes. There's, like I said, there is a slashing. Where is it? You can get slashed. So yeah, basically, if your server is unreachable for a period of time, as the validator, your Reef can get slashed. Your nominators can also get slashed, potentially. So it's really important to make sure that your server is online. That being said, the Community Developer Fund validator late last week, I think it was on Friday morning, the hardware underneath the VPS got rebooted. And even though I could have sworn I set everything up right, the service to start the Reef node software didn't come back. It did not come back online. So it was about 5 hours. Yeah, it was about 4 or 5 hours before I got back on and was able to, start the service back up and, get the blockchain synced, or the blockchain sync started again. In that 5 hours, there was no slash. So it's not like, oh, if it's down for like an hour, you're gonna lose half your Reef or anything like that. I think it's somewhat forgiving, but if it's offline for like an entire day or two, yeah, you're gonna start losing Reef, and hopefully your nominators will notice and move away from your validator as well. But basically, it's like if you're part of the active validator set, it is ultimately mission critical hardware and software that you need to treat this as, because you're literally helping run an entire blockchain with millions and millions of dollars worth of tokens on it. So take it seriously. It's the rewards part is fun, but ultimately it is a little bit of work required. And just take it seriously as if it was your own name out there, especially if you do put your own name on it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great stuff. Do we have any more questions from the community? If not, Okay, Mario. Just one moment. I'll allow you to speak. Hey, Mario, how are you doing? You're muted at the moment. You should be able to unmute your microphone now.
Sorry. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Reef is the blockchain for DeFi, NFTs, and gaming. So, do you already have some gaming companies or platforms in collaborations, or are you only planning that for the future?
I've literally got a partnership agreement out to a company who's already made a very popular game for another blockchain, about bringing that same game over to Reef with some somewhat lofty targets in terms of weekly and monthly unique active wallets. So as soon as we sign that, we're going to be off to the races, and we're definitely looking for more teams like theirs to bring games and NFTs, if that's relevant, over to Reef Chain as well. I think that's a much maligned but highly misunderstood space, where if you're a big World of Warcraft player or something like that, and there are still millions of those, I think it's still really dumb that you could grind for hours and hours and hours earn some sort of weapon or armor. And ultimately, if Blizzard decides World of Warcraft should no longer exist tomorrow, all that stuff's gone. Like you actually have no ownership of that. And so I know it's not as simple as, well, I'm going to take this NFT with me to another game. It's not, that other game needs to support the same format and rendering and all this other stuff that needs to happen. But like, it's all technically feasible. And I still have a feeling, although the last couple of years has not gone well in this regard, I still have a feeling that we're still headed towards a place where you can have something in Decentraland and some sort of approximation of that same item in the sandbox, and take it to an MMO RPG or a racing game or whatever, and use it in a similar way, or equip it on your character in another MMO RPG, even though you earned it in a different one. And I think that's really, really cool. And it might not be full parity across the two games for what that item is capable of and things like that, but I still think that sort of future is doable. And it's just a matter of making sure that the underlying standards make it easier for game developers to support that. And obviously, with so many developers building on Unreal Engine and Unity and stuff like that, I think that helps. And if there's some sort of translation layer that can make 2D objects into 3D, or vice versa, or the original designer has to make a 2D version and a 3D version, I think that would be worth it to everybody. And if you've ever seen, or if you've ever read the book Ready Player One, or you've seen the movie, I still think that's going to be a big part of our future. I don't know how far away. I'm not going to guess, but ultimately, I think that'd be really cool, and I think we'll get there eventually.
Cool. So, anybody out there that's in GameFi, that kind of space, you should reach out to Derek and the team.
Yeah, come talk to me. Let's do something fun.
Let's see what cool stuff you can do together. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up there. Thank you very much, Derek. It's been absolutely fantastic. We're going to be discussing things for Reef and Zypto to do together in parallel. I think there's plenty that we can get going, and we'd love to have you back on this. A little bit down the line, so you can give us an update on the things you've been telling us about. Everybody listening, make sure you visit reef.io. Anything to add? Any call to action or anything, Derek, before we finish?
I'm not a big shill kind of guy. I will say visit reef.io. If you love Telegram, join our Telegram group. It's at Reef Chain. If you prefer Discord for whatever reason, great. Discord.gg/Reef Chain. Or you can be a bit more passive and just follow us on X. That's Reef_chain. And we have a lot coming. We've got the bridge. We've got this game developer. We've got a DAO protocol coming finally. We've got, we started this community developer fund validator literally about just over a month ago. And it's generating resources that we can use to accelerate Reef Chain's growth. And we're finally headed in the right direction here. So it's an exciting time. It's still early, and we have a lot to come.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So thank you, everybody, for tuning into Crypto Made Easy with Zypto. If you found this interesting or useful, please do subscribe to us on Spotify, iTunes, other major podcast distribution channels, and wherever you can, make sure you leave us a nice thumbs up or 5 stars or all the stars. Visit Zypto.com to find out more about what we do here at Zypto. Download the app. There's a huge update coming in just a few days from now. I've been Joe Parkin, and I'll see you again very soon for another episode with another brilliant guest. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody.